If you think you can do two things at once and be just as productive, your brain is lying to you. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why multitasking is the most efficient way to be unproductive and what to do instead to multiply your actual output. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Multitasking doesn't exist. Your brain is physically incapable of processing two complex cognitive tasks simultaneously. What you call multitasking is actually something called rapid task switching, and it's destroying your ability to do quality work. A 2025 study from Stanford University followed 300 workers who considered themselves expert multitaskers. The results were devastating. These people who proudly did multiple things at once were significantly worse at every cognitive metric measured than those who focused on a single task. Worse working memory, worse ability to filter irrelevant information, worse processing speed, and here's the irony, they were even worse at switching between tasks. The supposed multitasking experts were the worst multitaskers. Let me give you concrete numbers. Researchers from the Institute of Psychiatry at the University of London found that multitasking reduces your functional IQ by an average of 10 points. 10 points. That's more than the effect of smoking marijuana. More than losing a complete night of sleep. And I know exactly how this feels because I was a multitasking addict. I answered emails while on calls. I wrote reports while watching tutorials. I checked my phone while working on important projects. I felt productive. I felt efficient. I was completely wrong. One day I measured how long it took me to complete a project when I did it without interruptions versus when I allowed multitasking. The difference was humbling. What took me 2 hours focused took me 5 hours with interruptions, more than double the time. But it felt like I was being more productive because my brain was constantly stimulated. So what's really happening in your brain when you try to multitask? Why does it feel productive, but is actually destructive? Your brain has something called the prefrontal cortex. This is the part that handles executive functions, planning, decision-making, problem-solving. It's your cognitive control center, and it has a critical limitation. It can only handle one complex task at a time. When you try to do two things simultaneously, your prefrontal cortex doesn't divide its attention. It rapidly switches between both tasks. Like an old computer trying to run two heavy programs, it alternates between them very quickly. But each switch has a cost. Neuroscientists call this the switching cost. Every time your brain switches from one task to another, it needs time to reorient. It needs to remember where it was. It needs to load the context. It needs to suppress information from the previous task. All of this takes cognitive energy and time. A study from UC Irvine that I mentioned before found that after an interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to regain full focus on your original task. 23 minutes, not 3 minutes, not 5 minutes, 23 complete minutes. If you're switching between tasks every few minutes, you never ever reach deep concentration. You're operating in constant shallow cognitive mode. It's like trying to heat water but turning it off before it boils, turning it back on, turning it off again. The water never boils. Your work never reaches deep quality. And trust me, I experienced this viscerally. There were days where I'd answer an email, then work on a presentation for 5 minutes, then check Slack, then return to the presentation. At the end of the day, I'd worked 8 hours but only produced 2 hours of actual work. The other 6 hours were pure switching cost and fragmented attention. Now let's talk about the measurable cost of multitasking on your productivity and work quality. The American Psychological Association published an exhaustive analysis on multitasking in 2025. They found that multitasking can reduce productivity by up to 40%. 40%. You're losing almost half your productive capacity trying to do two things at once. But it's not just speed, it's quality. A 2024 study followed programmers, writers, and designers for 6 months. They divided their work time into single focus blocks versus blocks where they allowed interruptions and multitasking. The results were striking. Work produced in single focus blocks had 62% fewer errors, required 38% fewer revisions, and received 49% more positive client evaluations. Same time invested. Massive difference in results. And then there's the cost to creativity and innovation. Harvard University did a fascinating study where they gave complex problems to two groups. One group worked without interruptions for 90 minutes. The other group was interrupted every 15 minutes with secondary tasks. The uninterrupted group generated solutions 73% more creative. 73%. Deep thinking, the kind that solves complex problems and generates innovative ideas, requires sustained concentration. Multitasking makes it impossible. I notice this in my own work. My best ideas, my most elegant solutions, my most impactful content always came after long blocks of deep concentration. Never ever during fragmented work sessions where I jumped between multiple things. But here's the insidious problem with multitasking. It feels productive. Your brain releases small doses of dopamine every time you complete a microtask. You answer an email, dopamine. You check a notification, dopamine. You switch to another window, dopamine. You're in a constant cycle of small immediate rewards. It feels good. It feels busy. It feels like progress. But it's illusory progress. You're running very fast on an endless treadmill. A 2025 study from the University of Michigan found that people underestimate the time it takes them to complete tasks when multitasking by an average of 54%, more than half. They think they're being efficient when they're actually being incredibly inefficient, and this creates an addiction problem. Because multitasking feels good in the moment, people continue doing it even when it objectively worsens their results. It's like eating junk food. It tastes good, but it's destroying you. So how do you break this cycle? How do you shift from destructive multitasking to productive focus? Here's the exact protocol I use to triple my actual productivity. Anti-multitasking protocol. 4 fundamental principles. Principle 1. Intentional monotasking. 1 task, 1 time block, 0 exceptions. This sounds obvious but requires conscious discipline. Before starting any work session, declare out loud the single task you're going to do. For example, write the second quarter sales report. Only that. Nothing else until it's complete or until your assigned time block ends. A study from the University of Pennsylvania found that simply declaring your intention to monotask increases your follow-through by 67%. Your brain responds to verbal commitment. The key is eliminating ambiguity. You don't start a work session saying, "I'm going to work on important things." That invites multitasking. You say, "I'm going to write the first 1,000 words of Chapter 3. Specific, measurable, singular. Principle 2. Time blocks of 90 minutes maximum. Your brain can't maintain deep focus indefinitely. Research on ultradian rhythms shows that optimal concentration occurs in cycles of 60 to 90 minutes, followed by rest periods of 10 to 15 minutes. Set a timer. I use 90 minutes for heavy cognitive work, like writing, programming, or designing. 60 minutes for work requiring less intensity, like answering emails or reviewing documents. During that time, only that task exists. After the block, you take a real break. Not a break of checking social media, a break where your brain disconnects. Walking, stretching, looking out the window, doing nothing. This allows your prefrontal cortex to recover before the next block. A 2025 study from the University of Illinois found that workers who implemented this time block system with real breaks produced 43% more high-quality work in the same 8-hour period than those who worked continuously with multitasking. Principle 3. Digital airplane mode for critical tasks. This is non-negotiable. During your deep concentration blocks, your phone is in airplane mode. Your computer has all notifications disabled. Email closed. Slack closed. Browser with only the tabs necessary for your specific task. It sounds extreme, but here's the reality. Researchers at the University of Texas did an experiment where they asked people to complete complex cognitive tasks. One group had their phone in another room. Another group had it on their desk face down. Another group had it in their pocket. The group with the phone in another room had significantly better cognitive performance than the other two groups. Even having your phone nearby, even though you're not actively using it, reduces your available cognitive capacity. Your brain is constantly monitoring its presence, using valuable mental resources. I implemented this religiously. During my 90-minute blocks, my phone is literally in another room. Not just silent, physically out of my workspace. The difference was immediate and dramatic. Principle 4. Batch processing for small tasks. Here's the secret most people don't understand. The problem isn't doing multiple things. The problem is doing them simultaneously. The solution is batch processing, grouping similar tasks into dedicated blocks. Instead of answering emails throughout the day every time one arrives, you designate 2 specific blocks. 9 a.m., 30 minutes only for emails. 3 p.m., 30 minutes only for emails. Outside those blocks, email doesn't exist for you. Same with calls, messages, social media review, administrative tasks. Group them into specific blocks. This allows you to enter the mental context of that type of task once instead of 20 times a day. A 2025 analysis of high performers found that 92% used some form of batch processing. They didn't respond to things randomly throughout the day. They had dedicated blocks for specific categories of work. When I implemented batch processing, my productivity exploded. I no longer lost 23 minutes regaining concentration after each email. I processed all emails in one concentrated session, then returned to deep work without switching cost. After 30 days implementing these 4 principles, your relationship with work will have fundamentally changed. You'll no longer feel the compulsive need to be doing multiple things. You'll understand that doing one thing extraordinarily well is infinitely more valuable than doing 10 things mediocrely. Let me leave you with a question that completely changed my perspective. At the end of your life, what would you like to have done? Hundreds of superficial tasks you don't remember, or a handful of deep, meaningful, excellent projects that truly mattered? Multitasking gives you the illusion of being busy. Monotasking gives you real results. Every time you open a second tab, every time you answer a message while working on something important, you're choosing busyness over achievement. The good news is you can change right now. Not tomorrow. Not Monday. Now. Close everything except this. Decide one task. Only one. Set a 90-minute timer. Put your phone in another room and do that single thing with your full attention until it's complete or until the timer sounds. If this video helped you understand why multitasking is destroying you, subscribe. Because in upcoming videos, I dive deeper into each deep focus technique. I'm going to show you exact work setups, apps that block distractions, how to manage teams when you work in blocks. Drop a comment telling me how many things you were trying to do while watching this video. Be honest. I want to know if this is really a massive problem or just my experience. Your attention is your most valuable asset in the 21st century. Are you using that asset to create deep quality work, or are you fragmenting it into 1,000 useless pieces? It's time to choose depth over busyness. See you in the next video.